I've seen over 1,000 movies, many of them being good, and I've had the pleasure of seeing many, many great performers over decades of film. And I've seen actors like Jack Nicholson, Meryl Streep, Marlon Brando, Isabelle Huppert, Robin Williams, Daniel Day-Lewis, Kevin James, um, so many great actors. But the title of my favorite actor of all time has to go to the great Robert De Niro. He's probably the most versatile actor I've ever seen. And even if you're one of those morons who think that De Niro has only done gangster roles, he would still have incredible range because he can go from the quietly menacing but respectable Italian immigrant in The Godfather Part 2 to this slimy, low-level rat in Mean Streets to the feeble and disturbed Frank Sheeran in The Irishman, and he can play Al Capone like he did in The Untouchables. And I haven't even mentioned his non-gangster roles. You got Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, The Deer Hunter, Heat, Cape Fear, etc. For many like myself, he was the defining actor of the 70s, and he was also in prime condition in the 80s and 90s. But ever since the late 90s, his career took a very strange comedic route, which was in comedy. Analyze This, Meet the Fockers, Showtime, Analyze That, Shark Tale, etc. He went from gritty crime to comfy comedy, and even though he had done comedy in the past for stuff like Mad Dog and Glory, Brazil, Midnight Run, stuff like that, it was still just really weird to see this intense method actor go this direction. But you know what, he's a great actor, so surely everything went fine, right? Right?
In your rear, elimination, constipation.
Yeah, he didn't do so well, did he? But let's take a deeper dive into the pool of De Niro's comedic career, shall we? And you know what? It starts off pretty strong. I mean, Analyze This and Meet the Fockers are very well regarded comedies. He was even nominated for Best Leading Actor in a Comedy at the Golden Globes for both of these performances. Even though he was definitely the supporting actor in both of those movies. But I mean, that must make him look even better, right? Fortunately, after that, his career takes a very strong decline, with occasional ups in movies like Silver Linings Playbook and maybe The Intern. But what about him? I'm just talking about his movies. What about him, Mr. Robbie D himself? Is he a funny actor? I would say no. I don't think he's funny. But I think he can be a funny actor, and he has been funny in the past when given the right script and director, specifically Martin Scorsese. So yeah, I do think he's a funny actor generally, but in my opinion, I think he's funniest when he's not in a comedy. I think some of his funniest roles are actually in dramas. The reason I don't think he's funny in his comedies is because he simply tries way too hard to be funny. He delivers his funny lines the same way a stand-up comedian would deliver a joke, rather than an actor playing a character. Here's a clip of Robert De Niro doing this.
Well, obviously I made a bad decision because you're nothing but a cock-blocking machine. I don't know what you are. You're like the Israeli Iron Dome defense system, but with vaginas instead of missiles.
He's just too aware of himself. I feel like actors who, you could say, play themselves in their comedies, like Will Ferrell or Adam Sandler, they stay in that character and they tell those jokes in that character. De Niro does kind of stay in character as he would in a drama, but then he has to break character in order to make his jokes. And you end up seeing Robert De Niro making the joke rather than the character making the joke. And this is weird because he never ever did this in his dramas. Here's an example.
Supposed to know what you're doing.
I did just what I wanted to do.
That's what I'm worried about. You did it.
You want a title shot?
What are you talking?
Do you want a title
What
shot?
is? What am I in? What am I in a circus over here? I asked him. He's got more sense about this. What are you doing?
Killing you.
Come out going shopping when you owe somebody money, Johnny. That ain't right. What are you talking? How much you got
Charlie,
there?
I'm gonna pay him next week. I'm gonna pay
Yeah,
you.
you're going and you're going.
What makes me think Robert De Niro could be a great comedic actor is this quote from Thelma Schoonmaker, regular editor for the films of Martin Scorsese, saying this about the editing process for Raging Bull.
It was extremely difficult. The material was unbelievably rich. These are the two greatest improvisers in the world. They spark each other off and they're fearless. They have to, Scorsese always tells them they have to start a certain place and they have to end a certain place, but anything goes in between.
Robert De Niro has always been great at improvisation.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
Which is something very important to comedy. And Raging Bull, for example, when you put away the toxicity and the violence, it's actually a pretty hilarious movie.
The thing that runs that runs through almost every dramatic sequence in Raging Bull is the sense of comedy. You know, the fact that you feel like you're hearing Abbott and Costello routines between him and Joe Pesci, between him and Kathy Moriarty. I mean, it's like one of his funniest performances he's ever given. And what's very interesting, and you can do this with Taxi Driver too, is if you were to tape an audience watching Raging Bull in a movie theater and play the tape back, I believe you would swear you were listening to an audience watch a comedy.
Robert De Niro is really funny in a lot of movies. He's funny as the hilariously and intentionally campy psychopath in Cape Fear, a deranged goofball in The King of Comedy, and this weird, failed bank robber in Jackie Brown. In all these roles, in all those movies, he delivers those jokes in character very authentically. Scorsese seems to be the director who knows how to get the most out of De Niro in terms of comedy, and this actually correlates really well with my problem with De Niro. And Paul Newman, who worked with Martin Scorsese on The Color of Money, said he was given this advice for the comedic scenes in the film. Try not to be funny. The poor quality of his comedies are definitely also a big reason of his unfunniness, but maybe he picked those roles not because they're hilarious, but because they're just more fun to make. I mean, dramas do probably require more effort and research from the man. And when you look at the late careers of actors like, I don't know, Diane Keaton, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, they do tend to make these bad vacation movies, which look very fun to make, and also probably put a lot of money in their wallet. And yeah, it's probably for the money. Maybe he just wants to prove that he's funny. But on a separate note, I feel like when people think of comedies, they think of something that could have been directed by somebody like Judd Apatow or John Landis, something digestible and something you don't really have to think about after watching it, just something you can watch with the family. But I think De Niro should really raise the bar when it comes to comedies, because there are many great comedic directors like Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson, the Coen brothers. And I think that they prove that comedies don't have to be that shallow, and I don't think De Niro should be in movies that shallow. But yeah, in conclusion, I think he's funny, but I don't think his movies are funny, and I think he sucks in them. Even though he doesn't have to, he just needs to find the right director and the right script, and he can really, really flourish and carry a movie. And yeah, I'm sure when the time comes, he'll knock it out of the park. So, everybody, 1 like equals 1 prayer for Robert De Niro's career. Also, 1 subscribe, 1 like, 1 bell, 1 share, 1 follow on Twitter, and 1 follow on Letterboxd equals 1 prayer for Robert De Niro's career. Have a stupendous afternoon, everybody.